Black Friday. Discounts up to 50% off for 3 days only. 28-29-30 November. Description: Sasuke, slightly blushing and embarrassed, held onto Itachi's hand. Naruto timidly squeezed his mother's tender fingers, and as soon as their two unfocused gazes met, hostility flared up in a hot, all-consuming flame, as if by black magic out of the blue. Part 1. It lasted so long that now Naruto couldn't even say approximately when it all started. They just hated each other. Instantly, as if they were born for this. They broke through the soft maternal membranes and tore themselves away from the umbilical cord with one single purpose: to despise each other until scarlet flashes before their eyes. Sasuke, slightly blushing and embarrassed, held Itachi's hand. Naruto timidly squeezed his mother's tender fingers, and as soon as their two scattered glances met, hostility flared up with a hot, all-consuming flame, as if by black magic. Out of the blue. Even back then, while sorting through toys in the sandbox on the playground, solving small children's problems, sorting out relationships with the neighbor's children, he and Sasuke bickered not at all like children, but very much like adults. They designated the site as a battle arena and divided the territories with blood. Like rulers in their small white offices and round towers. They found and lured allies with impossible promises, invented weapons capable of shaking the enemy's confidence, even for a second, and didn't skimp on traps and setups. They fought, however, not at all as befits rulers, until their teeth were knocked out, bruises were bruised, and tufts of hair were torn out, swallowing wet sand, gritting their teeth. They resembled puppies or lion cubs maddened by rage, who will never, ever find peace as long as their enemy lives. On cold evenings, we returned home only when a suffocating lump of resentment rose in our throats, and our strength was completely exhausted. Still, sometimes, when one of the relatives would show up and drag the unfinished ruler home by the scruff of his neck to eat porridge. Very soon, the parents realized it was best for these two not to cross paths, and then the open confrontation turned into a cunning strategy. More secret traps, more spies in the enemy camp, more quiet showdowns. Under the cover of Fugaku-sama's bulky monster machines. When they went to school, things got more complicated. There was only one school in the area, so they would occasionally bump into each other on the way, hit each other with backpacks, textbooks, and rulers, tear each other's nice, clean uniforms to shreds, and hate each other 3 times as much. A short pause came when Mikoto got tired of buying the younger one new shirts every day. Then Fugaku decided to drive the brat to and from school. But as soon as Sasuke went for a walk, his feet carried him toward Uzumaki's ringing laughter, telling amazing stories to impressionable girls. And everything was repeated bruises, scratches, blood, and black scarlet, never-ending hatred. When his emotions eased and hormones took over, Sasuke started smoking, beating people up over girls, and breaking hearts left and right. He changed, but the colorful spots remained the same. Marks of Naruto's fists and teeth on his stomach and shoulders. Naruto had acquired the status of the life of the party, entertaining everyone, mending Uchiha's broken hearts, and growing sunflowers on the windowsill. And his candy blue eyes still flashed with anger whenever the Uchiha appeared on the horizon, and he still snapped at his voice. Like a trained dog he rushed towards me, hitting, biting, invariably getting hit in the solar plexus. Now they have become more careful and attentive, learned to tense their abs to reduce pain, learned to dodge, counterattack, and stop drawing innocent friends into their games. Itachi said, "Sasuke, when will this crap stop? You're not 10 years old anymore, it's time to think about your reputation." Sasuke answered, "It's my business." And he invested the words with sacred meaning, pronouncing business in a deeply evil, dreamily corrosive tone. Minato said, "Naruto, please make peace with me finally." Naruto answered, "It's my business." And in his voice there were hundreds of meanings, secret ideas, desires, and some dark, vengeful hopes. At 17, Naruto thought he fell in love, at the clumsy, big-headed Sakura. He gave her sunflowers, took her across rooftops and to the movies, told her stories, and loved her all the way to the tip of her funny forehead. Sasuke beat her in a week. He tamed her, brought her to her knees with a cold gaze and silence, made her crawl after him in fits of adoration, and bathed in her tears. He didn't care about his forehead, he only wanted one thing: to annoy Naruto. Then the war took on new shades of bitterness, the sadness of a love triangle and the full depth of hidden resentment. Sasuke would never tell anyone that every day, on the way home, he leaned his forehead against the tinted glass of his father's expensive car, involuntarily searching with his eyes for fake gold and azure drops of rage. Naruto would never admit to himself that he spent every day looking at the house across the street, waiting for the black and white beast to return when she fell ill with pneumonia for the long winter month. They were born to hate each other. The malice grew with them, acquired new features, loomed over their heads like a beast, and growled louder and louder in their backs. At 18, Naruto fell in love with what he thought was Hinata. He followed her around, sweet and shy, offering her a hand when she twisted her ankle, carrying her across puddles, kissing her on the cheek goodbye, twirling a beautiful long lock of hair around his finger, and smiling as she went. Sasuke stole her away in 2 weeks. He took her to a club, gave her a taste of freedom, lemon, drunk, in some cheap hotel, and dumped her. Hinata couldn't bear the shame and left for another city forever, to live with her mother. He didn't care about the beautiful long hair from the skyscraper. He also generously sprinkled salt on Naruto's wounds and grinned crookedly, with superiority. When college came around, Naruto became seriously interested in racing and, for his relatively good grades, was gifted a beautiful orange bike. The steel steed sparkled in the sun like a fresh frozen orange, attracting the attention of everyone in the neighborhood. Fugaki gave a gloomy Sasuke one of his favorite cars. 2 days later, dark, deep scratches that looked like cracks appeared on the bike, and on the shiny black side of Sasuke's car, a white, crooked inscription read, "Pretentious creature." After a specific scandal and a scolding, revenge in the form of damage to property had to be stopped, but then it got worse. No one was able to stop them from wiping the smiles off each other's faces. One day, for his sharp words and uncontrolled chatter, Uzumaki was beaten in a neighboring yard until he was half conscious. They beat him brutally. As he crawled home, white as chalk, covered in mud, half dead and bent over, Sasuke finished his cigarette, sitting right on the hood of the car. And then something began to play within him that was subsequently strangled, buried and hidden deep, deep into the very darkness of the underground soul. It took Uchiha 2 days to break the arms of those who did this to Naruto. It took Naruto 2 months to fully return to normal life. And even to fighting. Although since that incident, in addition to the passion and rage, a strange, particularly dark hatred had appeared in his eyes. It reminded Sasuke of the broken mirror Haruno's parents had thrown away in the heat of a fight. The sky was reflected in Uzumaki's eyes in exactly the same way, and the bottom went in eerie zigzags. He became several times stronger, and it took twice, even 3 times as long to pin him down. Sasuke took up karate to regain his advantage, but quickly lost interest in the boring fights in the training hall. He wanted bright pain, the kind that takes your breath away. I wanted a blue sky above my head and arms twisted in a grip. I wanted cracking ribs and bruises, but not. You must be stronger to never fight. One unfortunate day, Uchiha broke his arm on his sensei's head and ended up in the hospital. Naruto, noticing the cast, stayed out of sight for a couple of days, and then went around with a cold sparkle in his gaze and a quiet, "I'm not going to fight a cripple." Time passed and a new threshold approached. 19. Sasuke began to combine work and study, settled down, and became interested in astronomy. Naruto became one of the small but very proud group of racers. Fights gradually gave way to insults and rage, with contempt. They clashed less often. And that was because there wasn't enough time and energy. Naruto never fell in love again, but he learned to smile sincerely at all his many friends. "Yes, everything's fine. Yes, I'm sure I'll get lucky soon." Sasuke was content with casual relationships and the same broken hearts. At 19, everything changed. At 19, Naruto crashed. For some reason, Sasuke couldn't remember what he was doing when he heard the wail of life-saving machines. A siren was blaring somewhere nearby, and he, waiting for Itachi to come home from the store, sensed something was wrong. He threw his jacket over his shoulders and followed the sound. As in childhood, Uzumaki walked towards laughter, catching the vibrations of a voice with a sensitive ear somewhere in the outskirts of his native yard. He stopped when he spotted an orange bike, littered with shrapnel and the green paneling of a kiosk. Suddenly, he spotted a body being loaded onto a stretcher by paramedics, mangled, grayish, and unconscious, and froze. Naruto's parents were on vacation, so he sat alone in the intensive care unit, staring blankly at a dripping drop of blue paint on the wall. Itachi didn't call. I didn't want to discuss it with anyone or tell anyone. And Naruto's friends suddenly disappeared somewhere. But Sasuke wasn't thinking about that. He thought, but were they born for the sake of hatred? If so, then why is this goal unattainable? What else can they do to achieve it? Kill each other? If Naruto dies, who will he have to look for? Who will he steal girls from, so that they won't love, won't get carried away, won't forget, but will still hate? Strongly, selflessly, without reason? Who needs him in this damn yard anyway, except Naruto? Sasuke asked question after question, turning pale and hiding his face in his palms, icy with fear. All night. And then he waited for Uzumaki to come to his senses. When he did, he'd come in and ask how things were going, but he wouldn't go into the room. He'd taken to silently passing ramen, apples, oranges, and soda to the nurses. Itachi caught his face with his gaze, and didn't recognize. The boy grew up. He quit smoking. He became so engrossed in astronomy that you couldn't drag him away. All night long with textbooks, a star map above the bed, covering the entire wall, bitten lips and bruises from lack of sleep. And Naruto gnawed on a carefully washed apple and thought, "Why can't he come in, you idiot?" He rolled up to the window, watching the familiar back, studying him, the fool, in a new and distant way. He listened to his aging mother's lamentations and his father's soothing words, saying that he would definitely be able to walk again. He said that only the right doctors were needed. That time was needed. As he was wheeled into the yard in a stroller, Sasuke hid behind his car, leaned his hot forehead against the newly repainted door, and burst into tears. Like a girl. He choked and choked on tears until his eyes and head ached with a dull, piercing pain, but he still didn't come out of hiding. And then, one warm summer night, I bumped into Naruto at the sandbox. I sat behind him. He sat down on a small but incredibly sturdy children's stool and put his hands in his pockets. He was silent for a long time. Naruto was the first to speak. "I'm sorry, but I'm no longer your rival." And turning over his shoulder, he smiled a surprisingly bright, painfully sad smile. Sasuke's system crashed, his antivirus and explorer crashed. He froze, knelt by the large black wheel of Uzumaki's new transport, and kissed it. Into the trembling corner of his lips, as gently as he could. He choked, gulped in the other's breath, slid his tongue along the edge of his parted lips, and shuddered, startled by himself. He recoiled. He ran away. It took Sasuke 2 months to sort out his feelings. It took Naruto 2 years to get back on his feet in a rehabilitation center, and come back a different person. Light, soft, wise, mature. During this time, Sasuke's eyesight deteriorated and his intellect grew from poring over books. And the unbearable craving, deep and heavy, grew stronger. It filled his body with its roots, nestling within like a dark tree of despair. The first time we met was in an alleyway. We bumped into each other and flinched simultaneously. Uchiha was slightly flushed from the beer he'd drunk. Out of habit, Naruto awkwardly twirled the keys to the inherited apartment in his hands. And it flared up as if by black magic out of the blue. The keys came in handy. The door slammed, the glasses flew off, the horizon wavered. Everything happened as usual, almost like a fight, only they were no longer dividing territory or seeking allies. Everything suddenly and abruptly went to hell. The shirt cracked again. Sasuke whispered that Naruto was repeating himself, and Naruto that Sasuke is again choosing the difficult path. Maybe they weren't born out of hatred after all? Maybe they really did have tags on their ankles. For Sasuke, for Naruto. But bad doctors cut the fateful threads along with the umbilical cords, and everything went awry. My head was terribly blown away, and his hands shook more violently than on a roller coaster, even though Sasuke was terrified of heights. Naruto embodied his terror of the vast, boundless skies. He had his own fears, and they still had to be overcome before the scales of universal balance could be restored. Naruto was hot as a hot engine and fought with himself alone. He didn't let me worry, he didn't let me be too affectionate. His hair was shaggy, his skin moist, tart spicy, and it smelled like freshly baked bread. Sasuke, on the other hand, was almost unbending, resilient, sharp, strong, and attentive. They were carried and drawn together with a force they had never experienced before. Never. But it was drawn uncontrollably, inexorably, always. Only to each other. And Sasuke realized that this was more correct for them, more familiar. It's much, much easier this way. Don't hate. And to love. In the morning Itachi met him at home, in the kitchen, renewed, completely and irrevocably. He laughed as softly as only he could, shook his head, and nuzzled his plate of scrambled eggs. What idiots you are, huh? He didn't remind them that after that first, vindictive encounter, Sasuke had been drawing blue eyes on everyone with chalk. He didn't remind them that he'd unconsciously agonized over what to wear before going out into the courtyard and, knowing he'd definitely run into Naruto, carefully shaved his chin. He didn't bother to remind me that when Naruto was in the hospital, he lost 15 kilograms and studied the entire map of the starry sky. I didn't. And the next night, I simply quietly watched two idiots making sandcastles in the sandbox and pointing their fingers at the boundless, velvety black, diamond-strewn deep sky. And I smiled.